Hey traders, David Frost, My Strategic Forecast. You're here for another episode of Common Sense Market Analysis. Today is Wednesday, January 8, 2025. We are looking at a daily chart of the SPY or Spider, which is the proxy for the S&P 500. What do we have on that docket today? Well, the market by the end of the day didn't really do much. She finished up 86 cents on the Spiders, 9 points in the S&P, but at the end of the day, there's been no material change in the S&P. She's below the 50 and 20 period moving average. We have a big time breakdown candle from yesterday, and she basically closed just over yesterday's close, not by much, didn't get very far. Did make a new low today, but finished the close inside of yesterday's low. If there's a positive takeaway, it's the fact that she closed above yesterday's low. But we know Mrs. Market can do the sideways routine, the bearish flag routine. However, what we also know is if she recaptures yesterday's high, which will put her back above the 20 and 50 period moving average, that will be the bull case for another move higher. Yesterday's high, therefore, is what we call in the trading parlance a bogey. By the way, a little housekeeping. The market is closed tomorrow. President Carter's funeral. It is a market holiday in 2025. The bond market seems to be open, but an early close at 2 o'clock. Can't seem to figure that one out. No rhyme or reason. Let's do a little intermission and take a look at the magic calculator with Reddit. We've got an endless supply of these in the live room. We've got a high here of 187.69. We plug it into the pivot high, hit calculate. Let's just take a look at where today's low was. 166. Interesting. Happens to be a magic calculator at 167.70. Fair enough. There's your 167.70. Go down to a short-term chart, and you can see what's going on here when she hit 167.70. Pretty slick stuff, isn't it? Right of the vertical is today's activity. You can see the importance of 167.70 right out of the magic calculator. All the numbers that it spits out each and every time you do this aren't important. The important numbers are the ones that are around current price. This morning, price was here. The next number up was above 170, but the market was opening below 170. She pretty much opened right on top of the magic calculator. How you doing? I want to show you one more. One of the traders in the live room brought this to my attention. Took a look. Here's a high on SMLR. The high is 81.56. All right, fair enough. Magic calculator gets fired up, 81.56. We're going to focus in on 53.01. Here's a daily chart. We're going to put a line at 53.01. That's the blue line. The low in this candle is 52.87. The low in this candle is $53 even. And you got to bounce to a high of 62.34. This is what it looks like on an hourly chart. There's your bounce. Could you make use of the magic calculator? We have traders using it to make real money. This is something that I held off on releasing for years. It's no joke. Wrapping up the Spiders, do we have any material change today in the Spiders? No, we don't. We're going to move on to Camp IWM. Now, Camp IWM was down today $1, about 0.5%, give or take. But she recovered quite a bit from where she was earlier. My favorite market leading indicator, is she trying to put in a higher low here, over here today? Or is this a simply bearish, wedgish type of situation that just isn't ready to fall just yet? And this is what we discussed yesterday. This is still valid. Could she have went down today? Yes. Was there a rescue operation? Yes, there was. Do we know what's going to happen tomorrow? No, we don't. Well, tomorrow's the market closed. Do we know what's going to happen on Friday? No, we don't. But this is a classic bearish wedgish formation until and unless they break the chain. How do they break the chain? They got to go up. Breaking the chain on the downside is just having the pattern played out. They have to go up and they have to recapture this high here, for example, 227.17, the 20-period moving average. It's going to put them into, or at least heading for, the 50-period moving average. We start talking about climbing the big breakdown candle, all that stuff. Right now, they're not doing that. We take it at face value. What about the folks down at the transportation department? Same bearish wedgish deal going on here. They found support when we discussed it, which was a couple of weeks ago. 15,730 was an important number. But here, there's a wedgish, flaggish thing going on from a move down. There's your flagpole on the way down. There's your bearish, wedgish formation underneath the moving averages, except for the 200-period moving average. No change since last night. They break the chain by getting above here. However, if they don't, this will generally play out to the downside. No change from the last time we discussed it. No material change today. Team transports. Favorite market leading indicator number 2, a number 1 canary in the coal mine. Finished up $33 today, 0.2%. We're not going to make a federal case out of it. The Q people, any material change on the Q chart from what we discussed yesterday? No. They basically closed up 9 cents, which is above yesterday's close. If there's a positive development, that's it right there. Can she climb the breakdown candle? She can. Will she? We don't know. This is a market that now has a change in character. The spiders have a change in character from what they were doing here. This big down day was meaningful when it happened. It's still meaningful whenever they have one of these big breakdown candles until they recapture the big time breakdown candle. They tried here, they failed. They're trying again, lower high, failed again underneath the 50 and 20 period moving average. We talked about it already. That's not a positive development. She is turning, changing character, ing in italics. Same deal with the Q people, but staying above the 50 period moving average. Weekly chart, absolutely nothing wrong whatsoever. No change from last night. We're moving along. XLF up 16 cents. Any change from last night? Absolutely not. Almost skipped over inside the numbers. Here's an 8 o'clock post. Well, the thieves in the morning was the 8 o'clock post. The early stuff was 587.80 is our early pivot. That's what we want to focus on, 587.80. Right of the vertical is today's activity, and you can see here pretty clearly 587.80 is in fact a pivot. The market hung around that number, a little above it, a little below, but never got too far away from the center line. That number was in fact today's pivot. Never got much higher, never got much lower. 588.90 is overhead resistance on the way up to a higher number, 591.05, 588.90. It was about $1 higher. She got up to 588.90 a couple of times, spiked it a few times, and centered around back between that number and the pivot, not ever getting up to the next number. Pause the video, read the notes, go back to the chart, double check the work. It's all in here. We did have a 590 way station by 10:55. You see this post here. At that point, above 587.80, the pivot on candle closes. She's bullish for a bounce again. Staying above gives you first 590 and then 91.05. For what it's worth, there's your 590. Pause the video, read the notes, go back to the chart, and double check the work. We did have some stocks on the move today. We had AMD and Palantir. Reddit was off the board. Let's take a look at the charts of AMD and Palantir. And as you can see in AMD, we'll start with the numbers work. Each number independent of one another for the most part worked out. This was certainly a pretty darn good support zone today for AMD getting a haircut at the opening bell. Palantir, we had 66.65. You see they came close in the early going when the major participation exists in the market. They came close, bounced away, hovered. The manner in which counts. While the number worked, the trade wasn't the same as it would have been early in the morning, but the takeaway is the numbers worked. 66.65 in Palantir. Then, of course, we have a list of a dozen markets we cover. You might want to write some of these numbers down, pause the video, put some lines on your chart, and see how these work out. This is there for the taking each and every day from an inside the number and live room perspective. Before we left off on the XLF, above this black line, she turns back to bullish mode. Gonna recapture 50 bucks. Staying below here, it's bearish. She's leaking. That's the way it works. No change from yesterday. About the SMH, or smash mouth as I like to call it, coming back to run a test of the top of the triangle pattern, also filling a gap. Interesting and also funny how that works. Big down day yesterday, finished the job today. Again, stay above the triangle and she's still in bullish mode. So did we have traders early today pick off a trade at the triangle? Of course we did. This is what the 15-minute intraday chart looked like. Back inside and best yet below the triangle, and the bear case is activated. Look out below. That could turn into be an Irene situation. Have I told you how much I appreciate each and every one of you? Without you, these videos are not possible. That is true and accurate information. We're pulling the ripcord here today. I'm David Frost. My Strategic Forecast. Thanks again for tuning in to another episode of Common Sense Market Analysis.